So November 6, 2021, beautiful city of the Villages in Florida. My name is Jong Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has more than 1,500 of Korean interviews from the United States and all other countries, 21 of them that participate during the war. We are doing this to commemorate the special occasion of 70th anniversary of the breakout of the Korean War, supported by MPBA, Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs of Republic of Korea. We want to preserve your memory and honor your service, but at the same time, we want to give this interview the direct witness of your war experience to our young generations in the classroom so that they can learn from your own experience, the Korea you saw in 1950, and your sort of ideas and opinions about how Korea has been transformed from ashes to 10th largest economy in the world. It's a great honor to meet you, sir, and thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself. What is your name?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Han.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very proud to have served in the military of the United States and during the time of the Korean War. I was very young. I was a paper carrier in my hometown, small town in central Texas, and when the Allies invaded Europe, I had a paper boy. The local paper printed an extra and delivered them out at 4 o'clock in the morning to all the carriers. So I went down the streets yelling, "Extra, extra, read all about it." The Allies had landed in Normandy and lights came on everywhere, and they wanted their paper to read about it because it was a really big deal. And I've always been interested in what was going on in the military and the world. I had relatives that were in the military during the World War II. But I wasn't old enough to be in it.
You're right.
Thank goodness for that.
But I want you to say your name first. What is your name?
My name is Andrew Jack Cleveland.
And what is your birthday?
Easter Sunday, 1932, and that was March 27th.
March 27,
1932.
32, so you are 89-year-old.
That's about.
You look great, sir. Really. I mean it.
Oh, it's just that good living.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was in the Navy.
That's right. You had a hot meal, you had a everyday hot shower, right?
Well, it was a challenge, but not every day.
Not every day.
On a destroyer, the showers were not very big, and there was one shower for about 30 people. So we got in, turned the water on, got wet, turned it off, got soap, turned it on, washed off, and then turned it off and get out of the way for the next guy.
But you were a happy man because Army people didn't have a shower for 6 months.
Those were the heroes.
Yeah.
I'm not the hero.
No. You have your role. So where were you born?
I was born in central Texas in a town called Temple, Texas.
And when did you graduate your high school?
Temple, Texas.
When?
Graduated in 1949.
1949. What was the name of it? Temple High School?
Temple High School.
And did you learn anything about Korea from the school?
No. Never heard of Korea until the communists tried to take over South Korea. At that point, I was 18. And I immediately decided that I wanted to help stop that because that was a big deal and I wanted to do my share to help prevent it. And I'm very happy and proud to have been involved in it.
But we are talking about war.
Yes.
I really appreciate that you wanted to help, but at the same time, you could be killed.
Well, I knew that.
But you still wanted to help.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good. So what did you do? Did you enlist or drafted?
I enlisted in the Navy and went to Southern California Naval Training Station.
Where?
In San Diego. I was there for about 3 months, and then I was assigned to the fleet, which was in Korea.
What fleet?
7th Fleet.
Yeah.
And went to from Dallas, Texas, to San Diego for training, and from San Diego to San Francisco to be deployed. And I went from San Francisco to Japan on a small aircraft carrier, which was used for transportation, not for flying, not for air ops.
Yeah.
And went to Sasebo in Japan, and then went on a train from there to cross Japan to Yokosuka. Yokosuka.
Yeah, and then?
And then from there on a Navy tanker
Yeah.
out to the 7th Fleet, which transferred me to my ship, the Richard B. Anderson.
USS Richard B. Anderson?
Richard B. Anderson is the name
That's
of the ship. It's a destroyer.
Destroyer.
And went from the tanker to the destroyer on what they call a high line. They set a line across the ships, and you sit in a chair and they wheel you over to the across the water. Anyway.
That was East Sea?
At sea.
East Sea.
On the east side coast.
And when did you actually transfer to destroyer from tanker? When was it? 1950?
1951, around April.
All right. And so, what was your specialty?
Well, I didn't have a specialty, but they put me in the radar.
Radar.
And then I became a radarman, but I had to earn being a specialist.
Yeah.
And after 4 years, I was a radarman 2nd class, which had similar to a staff sergeant in the Army.
Yeah. Tell me about the destroyer. How big was it? How many people there? What kind of guns and so on, please?
Can I show you a picture?
Sure.
Here is the ship, and has 6 5-inch guns. And I was a radarman. There's the main radar antenna and the fire controls.
Yeah. That's a good looking...
It's about 400 feet long and about 18 feet wide, and has about 250 people. And busy.
So what is the basic role and duty of destroyer in the 7th Fleet? What do they do? What was their mission, basically?
We had several. We're in the 7th Fleet, which was aircraft carriers and cruisers and destroyers. The destroyers were in a screen around the big ships to detect and protect from submarines. And we supported um, the aircraft carriers by screening and also in lifeguard. So when they're doing air operations, a destroyer was sitting behind in case an airplane went awry and didn't take off, or either when they were landing at the ditch in the ocean, we would pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were not in the screen or in other areas, we did ground support with firepower from the 5-inch guns. We had spotter from the Army or Marines on board ship that was in contact with their troops, and they were asked for firepower to be delivered at a certain point, and we would fire into that area. So,
What do you remember the name of the area? Was the east side of it, right? North Korea?
well, it was from Wonsan Harbor all the way down to the end of the peninsula.
So not north, but from Wonsan and to the south.
Yes.
So
And we also did minesweeping in Wonsan Harbor. We had some ships that got hit with mines, and some sailors I knew in boot camp were killed in that. So it was a spooky place because the radar gave you a lot of ghost pictures because of reflections. And so you saw a ghost on a radar screen, and then minutes later it was gone. So it was constant trying to determine if it was real or if it was a reflection or if it was a sampan floating around or a mine. So it's difficult.
what's the length of trajectory of the 5-inch gun to reach to the target in the land from the ocean? Do you know?
Well, they were good for, I think, around 7 miles.
7 miles?
Yeah,
That's a long.
yeah, it's a powerful gun.
Those Koreans were damned, right? They didn't know where the cannon's coming from.
Well, no, the enemy wouldn't know where they're coming from.
Right.
It's just a huge bomb coming in from somewhere.
So tell me a bit about it. How was it like that when you were in the destroyer of your own and they began to bomb? Okay, what was it like?
It was like being in a metal garbage container and somebody hitting it with a sledgehammer.
For how long?
It was just loud. And
For how long?
how long?
Hours?
Oh, for bombardment?
Yeah.
All night, all day,
So you couldn't
for
sleep.
days.
You couldn't sleep.
Well, you have to learn to sleep with it going on.
Really?
Yeah. At any rate, when you're at your watch, you get up and go, no matter whether you
No
got
matter
any
what.
sleep or not.
That's probably why you have hearing aids now with all
That's-
that noise.
Yeah, that's part of it. I don't know. When I was a kid, we lived close to a railroad track, and the trains coming in there were very noisy at night or any other time. So I could sleep through that anyway.
So you were trained to be a Navy,
Yeah.
to be in the destroyer.
Yes.
And that destroyer making bombardment to the North Korean coastline, but you were able to sleep.
Yeah.
Very. What about sweeping the mines in the sea?
Well,
how was it?
Well, when you find one, you shoot at it with a machine gun
Oh,
because it's kind of floating,
right.
and if you can blow it up, before it hits you, that's destroying it. And we destroyed several in Wonsan Harbor because they had it heavily mined because our ships were in there, and sometimes you don't see them in time. So we had lookouts and searchlights looking for them.
So basically, you ignited, right?
We blew, yeah.
You blew up, right?
We tried to blow them up before they hit anything.
I see.
And we also had rescue missions along the East Coast because there was a lot of Navy aircraft and Army aircraft in air conflict with the North Korean MiGs.
Yeah.
And several times pilots their plane gets damaged and they can't make it back to their home, the ship, or to a base. So they ditch in the water, and of course, in the winter the water there is extremely cold, and it's not very long. But we picked up downed pilots along the coast when we found out that they gave us approximate position, and so we would go there and try to find them. Mm-hmm. And we did find 4 or 5 over the time we were there, and in fact we found one pilot twice.
Twice?
About a month apart. So he was finally, I think he finally figured out he shouldn't be flying anymore. So, because he got knocked down twice. Anyway, that wasn't pleasant work, trying to find the downed pilots.
But at the time, there was no real enemy Navy presence.
Well, we didn't see any enemy Navy because they didn't have a big Navy. I don't think at that time. Nowadays they do, but.
So my question is, what was your main job as a radarman? You didn't have any enemy to detect, right? So what was your main work?
My work was either on the radio desk, talking to ship, or on the radar, watching, or on a large plotting board in the middle, keeping up with where everything is in the fleet, and especially when you're in the screening, because you have to know where the carrier is, because if you don't, the carrier will run into you. And so one time during the time, the USS Wasp, the big carrier, the fleet made a turn, but one destroyer missed the turn, and Wasp ran right through it and sunk it.
Sunk it?
Oh yeah, cut it right in two.
Yeah, because it's aircraft carrier.
It was just an accident because the destroyer should have been turning with everybody else, but somehow they missed it. But the carriers were running very fast, and there wasn't any way to get out of the way.
They should have had radarmen like Jack so that they couldn't collide.
Well, we were careful not to get in the way.
Exactly. So the main mission of the radarman at the time, when there is no major Navy presence of the enemy, it was to watch among us, right?
Well, we watched for aircraft, which had enemy aircraft, and they had a detection method to know if it was friendly or an enemy, called RFI. And that was part of the job of the radar men. We also had to do plotting from behind boards, writing backwards, and so that the officers in the front could read what it was. So you learn to write backwards and plot. It's a big plotting screen showing where everything was. And the radar would report a bogey, and we plotted on the board, and then we kept plotting it to see where it was relative to us and know if and when we had to shoot at it, because we could identify it as a friendly or unfriendly. So the radar room was called the Combat Information Center, CIC. And of course the bridge was where the ship was operated from.
Were there any dangerous moment that you could have been killed?
We never were attacked by enemy aircraft. We weren't attacked by any shore batteries. The only things we were attacked by were mines. We didn't know if there were any submarines, but we were constantly looking for submarines. But I'd say we were pretty much out of harm's way in terms of, ground combat or any kind of heavy guns from on the land. Our biggest danger was from the weather. We went through a typhoon, which we were in the fleet, so we had to stay in formation. But the waves were so big that one hit our ship, and the forward gun turret split open, and water started flooding into the ship. So they had to close all the hatches to isolate it, and we had to ride that out with, and that was probably the most scary thing I've ever been in, is the typhoon. Because you didn't know if the ship was going to sink or turn over or what. So, but it never sunk, and we got the turret repaired. They put some extra support after that, because shouldn't have split open, but it did.
So rather than enemy fire or bombing, it could be an accident and injured because the ship destroyer was really shaken by the typhoon, right? And hitting the wall, or
It was it looked like a big ship here, but in a typhoon it looks like a gnat.
Looks like what?
Well, very small. I called it a gnat, which is a very small no-see-um bug. You know what a gnat is, Jim?
Yeah.
Of course I did. Yeah.
KNAT, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I couldn't get it instantly because we're talking about typhoon so big and your ship is so small, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. How was life inside of destroyer?
It was very cramped, but not as bad as a submarine.
Of course.
Living quarters were very close. We slept in what they call a rack, which was a
Hammock.
a metal frame with a piece of canvas and a small mattress about 18 inches apart. And so
18 inches apart.
So and then when everybody was out, like when in the morning for everybody to check out, you had to heave out and trice up, which means you get out of your rack and all 3 or 4 people got out. Then they all were triced up, so you had more room to walk in between. And everything you owned was in a small cabinet on the deck underneath the stack of racks, and there were, for 4 high, there was 4 wide, and it was about 2 feet by 2 feet by.
What did you have inside there?
You don't have much stuff anyway. Well,
Toothbrush,
and hair, comb and bar soap.
Yeah.
Not much.
What about food?
No food there, but you had food.
No. What kind of food did you eat in the ship?
It was a good mixture of meat and vegetables and sandwiches, and depending on, they had a normal routine, had soup. It was reasonable food.
Yeah. How long did you stay in the sea, in the water, without going back to harbor?
6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so long.
Yes. But we had tankers to come and refuel us. And they had tankers coming. And when the tankers come, they also brought mail.
Yep.
And extra supplies. So when we're in port, we loaded food for being out 6 months.
You were not landing any part of the Korea, right?
No.
No.
We didn't. We went into no ports in Korea. Our ship was at supported the Incheon landings, but that happened before I got on it.
Right. So when did you leave Korea?
In September of '54.
Why did you stay there such a long service?
I signed up for 4 years.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then at the end, the armistice had been signed, where they had agreed to stop fighting, but the war is not over. But at that point, they allowed anyone that could register and had registered for a college, they could get out as much as 3 months early. So instead of going all the way to the end of December, I got out in September because I had applied and was accepted to go to the university.
What university?
Texas University. And so I was able to get out of the Navy at that point and go to school.
You got GI Bill.
GI Bill.
Yeah. So you never been back to Korea after that, right?
Yes, I've been back, and about 28 years later, I went back to Korea on business. I had worked at a company that was having manufacturing done in Korea. So I went to Korea to coordinate manufacturing of new products, and met a very industrious Korean manufacturer, and we've been friends ever since. So from the 1980 up to 2 years ago, I have been visiting Korea about 4 times a year.
Wow. What
And
kind of business was it?
Well, electronic products that they had manufactured over there. My grandson is a caricature artist, and he was in Korea doing an art exhibition. And so I was having dinner with my friend, Mr. Chu, and we invited my grandson to come to dinner with us.
Excellent.
So we went to dinner, and he made a snapshot of my friend and I, and then he made a caricature of it. And I got the caricature, and there it is. He exhibited this is the original. He exhibited this in an art show in China. And he had a note on it saying, "One of these gentlemen is my grandfather. And can you guess which one?" And his name is Sakota. So his father was Japanese. So he looks a little bit like a Korean. So they always picked, of course, Mr. Chu.
I see.
This is the real one.
Right.
That's pretty funny. Anyway.
What company was it? Do you remember the name of company of that Korean person?
Korean company?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Powertronics.
Powertronics.
Yes. My grandson wrote on the back, "You might already have one of these printed, but this is a special canvas print and was exhibited in China and Korea at my exhibitions."
So you know about Korean economy then now, right? You know that Korea is leading in electronics, Samsung, LG, and so on. But when you were there in Korea, even though you didn't see the land, but still you knew Korea was completely devastated and poor, right? And
I know.
then now what do you think about the whole thing? Tell me about it,
I
please.
was so, it was so gratifying to go to Korea 30 years later from the war and see how progressive they are. And it was beautiful cities and so well built up. It made me very proud that I was able to prevent it to become what North Korea looks like.
Yeah.
And I still am very proud that I could contribute to that, although my contribution was minuscule because there was thousands and thousands of people, military from the United Nations and the United States there. I was proud to be part of that, no matter how much I'd contributed. So
Absolutely.
and it was so gratifying to see the result 30 years later and even up to today. I'm very happy to go to Korea, and I love to go there and visit. I love the people. I've just had real good experiences there, and hope to continue.
Yeah. Yes. So did you Did you think that Korea would become like this today when you left Korea in 1954?
I had no idea of it, but I think the fact that they weren't taken over, it would be positive. So I had hopes.
What would you say to Korean people
Now,
now?
I'd say congratulations on rebuilding your country to being one of within the top 3 economic systems in the world, and a modern city. It's in that short a length of time is a miracle. And keep up the good work.
But you know that Korean War known as Forgotten War, and we don't talk much about it. There are very one small paragraph in our history book about the Korean War. Why is that?
People don't really understand that the war was about stopping the spread of communism and aggression from a dictatorial country. But now Korea is very well known in the world. They're very competitive in production and innovation, entrepreneurship. So they've done a good job.
Yeah, Koreans were able to rebuild the nation because American forces there, Korean War veterans there, and protect them, right?
Well, absolutely.
Yep.
And there was other countries that contributed as well. The United Nations troops there were from Australia and England and some other places. You've probably know more about that than me.
Right.
I appreciate your efforts in doing all of this. I think that it'll help the Korean people and other people in the world to understand what went on and why. And that's very good.
Yeah, that's why we need to teach our young generation not to support war, but the lessons that came from the Korean War.
Very good. Yes.
And you are living witness. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. Wonderful stories and good pictures of your destroyer and your caricature. So thank you so much again.
Yes. Well, I enjoyed it very much.